Hello and welcome to Radio with Pictures with femLINKpacific and FemTalk 89 FM. In conversation with heroines from across Fiji. In this episode, we're in conversation with Vani Tuvuki, who is the leader of the Koronubu Women's Fellowship from Ba. We have Nirmala Sharma, who is an executive member of the Vanuatu Arya Mahela Mandal, and she's also a member of the Vunicuicui multiracial group in Labasa. We have Unaisi Bakewa of the Tavua Disabled People's Organization, and also joining us from Tavua, a representative of the Tavua Methodist Youth Fellowship and Tavua Youth Group, Jona and Drua. Hi, Jona. So let's start with you, Vani, because you are organizing women in Koronubu to do many things. So let's understand the life of women in Koronubu and how they're leading in their community, particularly in agriculture and farming.
As I'm a leader of Koronubu Women's Fellowship Group, which is interdenomination group, consists of 100 women, 100 plus women, and 100 plus households, and women from all different religions and ethnic group. So the women leaders in my community, we share about ways of preserving food, ways of planting vegetables, and share informations on agricultural issues. And also one of the important things that we are also doing in Koronubu and also in Ba, we are encouraging women to come out from their own safe space, be resilient, and stand on our own 2 feet and do income generating. We've been doing a lot of the tie and dyeing, screen printing, and those women who know how to weave, they weave, and this is sources of income generating in our community.
Have the activities for the Koronubu Women's Group, but also other women in Ba, have the activities changed, particularly since TC Winston? Are you having to work harder? Are you having to do more to provide for your families?
Yes, Sharon. We have been, there's a vast difference in women in our community. They've come up, they've started showing their talent. As you've just heard, there was a launching of the shopping bags done by the Ba Women's Forum. Those are some of the women in our Women's Fellowship group. They've sown and money for themselves, and also for the club they are in. And some have come down to the expo, they sold their items, even the bed sheets, the quilt work they've done, and there's a lot of difference. Women have really come out from their comfort zone, they've showed their talents, so maybe because of the workshops and the consultations that are brought down to the community level, and women are able to come up.
Okay, wonderful. Nirmala, for the Vanuatu Arya Mahela Mandal, are most of these women from farming communities? And what are the ways in which women are organizing through the Arya Mahela Mandal across Vanuatu?
Most of them are farmers, sugarcane farmers and vegetable farmers. But even though they have a small farming system in their area, some of them are they're doing in a larger scale, the vegetable farming, but most of them have small scales. But still, they are so interested to take part in Vanuatu Arya Mahela Mandal. Vanuatu Arya Mahela Mandal consists of 6 different communities, rural communities, where these women are coming up every month to participate and do their interfaith prayer and things. And even they donate, the collection system is going, whereby we collecting, and all the women have to contribute something in every month, so that if there is any difficulties in any of the members house, for example, in one house somebody is died, so we have to, from that money we have to contribute to that family, to support that family. And this is how Vanuatu Arya Mahela Mandal, all the women are supporting each and every woman in the community.
Wonderful. Unaisi, the Tavua Disabled People's Organization, you were quite busy after TC Winston in terms of the community mapping. What have you been doing since then?
For the Tavua Disabled Organization, we are responsible. We are looking after the responsibility and the sharing information. As for the weather, Women's Weather Watch, that we've been frequently received in our mobile phones. So for us in the West and for the people with disability in our area, they really do not exist. They really do not access to information. So things that we do, that when anytime we receive the message, we tend to share it to them so that they can get prepared. And I've been encouraging them not to depend on others, but try to be dependent on themselves, getting ready, because we are on the cyclone season now. If anything is can happen at any time, they are ready to be being evacuated to the evacuation center.
In terms of the community mapping of persons with disability in Tavua, is there a specific disability that you have to be mindful of? Is it physical, is it psychosocial, or is it across the board?
We are really mindful for those people who are in the wheelchairs, because they are the ones that we really have to carry them, put them in the wheelchair, and we have to take them to the evacuation center. But for the hearing impaired and the visual, we really do not have to carry them. It's only those with the wheelchairs.
So you're really mindful of the need of the disability and the evacuation procedures. Jona, what's one activity that you're involved with other young people in Tavua?
Well, for Tavua, the gay society, they are very vulnerable to, occasionally, because they are more talented. So mostly they occupy themselves in every occasion, whether it's a funeral or a wedding, birthday. So I think they play a very important role when it comes to any occasions.
Okay, so they're getting involved with
involved.
the community. Stay with us. After the break, we're going to talk about the different roles in leadership, but also the barriers to participation in formal decision making. Welcome back to Radio with Pictures. Now let's just dive into the conversation about women's leadership and roles in all stages of disaster preparedness, response and recovery. We heard from Unaisi before the break that she's been quite involved and quite mindful of the needs of persons with disabilities to access evacuation centres. So that's clearly a leadership role. Vani, how can women from your community in the Ba district as well be supported to lead in these different stages of disaster management?
As a leader in Koronubu and also in the leaders in the Ba district, we've always been the first responders to disaster management in our homes and in our communities. We've had SMS messages messaged to us from our Women's Weather Watch, and we share it to other women in our groups, in our clubs, and they share it to other women who network with us. Not only in Koronubu area, as I've said, it's the whole of Ba, those women in the interior. Sometimes we visit them in the market vendors. We go to the market and then we show them the SMS message. See, there's a flood coming, there's a hurricane coming. I think you people better go home, put your things up. And so those are some of the ways. And also preparedness of preparing foodstuff and collecting of water, and getting women, especially elder women and the disabled women who live near the river to go up to the nearest evacuation center. Usually the evacuation centers in the schools. So those are some of the things we as first disaster respondents to in our community do. Sometimes we go up to the district level, we go to our PA and ask the PA where could this community go to if we are not sure of the evacuation center. So those are some of the things. And some women who do not have access to water, we also try and get water up to them during the PWD. So those are some of the things women leaders in our communities do. They are excellent in it, Sharon, and those are some of the things. We help other women. And those who don't have proper housing, also we ask them if they don't, sometimes they don't feel safe to go to the evacuation center. So we ask them, okay, which house do you want to go to? So usually they go to the neighbor's house, which is well developed.
With women doing all of these activities, are they in the disaster committees?
No.
So what's the problem?
Maybe that's one thing we've been lobbying for, the disaster committee to come down to, maybe because we are far away from the urban
From the town center.
From the town center, whereas there's the disaster committee. So that's one thing that we
So do we need to make sure that there's a disaster committee
Yes.
in each settlement?
yes,
And
yes,
make sure that women
are included, women leaders are included in all the communities.
Okay. Jona, picking up on what we've just discussed, how do we support young people in Tavua to get more involved and to grow in their leadership in these sorts of decision making and response processes?
Well, I think the DISMAC team should look into this. I think they should include young women and young people to be part of their management. Through that, I think they'll be involved.
And how do we support young women and young people to be involved? Because is there a specific training that you think, what's the kind of training to help you get there?
I think first of all they need to be trained on how to handle certain patients or certain people with, especially for disabilities. How they carry. I think this kind of awareness should be introduced so that they can broaden up their knowledge on how to handle certain people.
To really build their capacity as first
Yes.
responders. Okay, Nirmala, across not just Vanua level, but maybe let's focus on Vunicuicui and the Nasoni settlement. For the Vunicuicui multiracial women's group, how have you been organizing, particularly since DC Winston? What are some of the lessons learned and what are some of the disability preparedness plans you have?
In Vunicuicui, we just living just beside the river. There's one disadvantage for some of them, but as you know, my house is a bit far away. It's a bit higher place. So for me, I'm always when there is a disaster, when the radio says or newspaper or Women's Weather Watch, they give us SMS regarding this disaster. So we are so prepared. And as a river, when you see the river, that makes us bring more preparation. When we see that the river is flooding now, we know that we are in danger. So some of even my group members, they are just living beside the river. So we have to call them and tell them, give an alert and send them the messages to all my members, even my friends, not only to my members. I always send SMS to all my friends, my relatives, and to all my Vanwalibu Mahila Mandals, most of them whom I'm closer to. So they're gonna send message to other women. So in Vunicuicui, like disability, we don't have a proper evacuation center, so we just rely on the Vunicuicui school. Normally we have to go there, but most of the time, looking at TC Winston, what happened? The 4 neighbors just came to my house. They just stayed there for 4 days. For 4 days, because some of their houses, some of their kitchens, and some of their washrooms were being washed away, like blown away. So they had to go back and settle. Took a little bit time for them to settle, and then they went back. like 4 days they were staying with us. And if sometimes when it's a bigger hurricane or cyclone like Winston, those people who living just nearby the river, they mostly go to higher places, and they take their cows, goats to higher places to avoid from roaming away. Yeah.
So for the evacuation centers, Unaisi, how much more time is needed to get particularly persons with disabilities, those with wheelchairs, those with mobility challenges, to get to an evacuation center? I mean, this is clearly a need because it's a time frame, isn't it?
For people with disability in our area, those people in the wheelchair, some of them, they hardly go to the evacuation center because evacuation center in our area is schools, and they are not really friendly, disability friendly. So hardly, either they go to their neighbor's house, they can go to their relative's house, but hardly any of the people with wheelchair comes to the evacuation center.
Clearly some lessons learned from TC Winston. After the break, we put the spotlight on the annual 16 Days campaign. Stay with us. Welcome back to Radio with Pictures, in conversation with Jona, Unaisi, Nirmala and Vani. Now, we've been focusing on the role of women as leaders, including as first responders during all stages of disaster. But let's put the spotlight now on the 16 Days of Activism campaign. This year, the global theme shines a light on the issue of barriers, including violence, in all its forms to education, with the call of "Together we can end gender-based violence in education." Nirmala, the Arya Mehla Mandal and the Arya Pratinidhi Sabha Fiji invests heavily in education, including for girls. So when you think about this theme, ending gender-based violence in education, what does this mean for a rural schoolgirl from your community?
When we see that theme, we can just say that, as you have mentioned, that Arya Pratinidhi Sabha, they have so many schools in Vanuatu and also in Vitilevu. So it says, when listening to the theme, like all women and girls should be educated. The young girls should always be educated. Like before, when it was our time, our mother time, we do not have proper facilities to go to school. But now there are so many schools and so many facilities have been given to all the girls and boys. So now the girls, all the girls, need to be educated, well educated.
But is there a need to make sure that girls in particular feel safer at school? Or safe when they're going to school or coming home? There have been a few incidences.
No, they're not safe. So we need to, all the girls and women to be safe and secured every time. They are not so safe. At the moment, I can just say, like this daylight saving, some of the women and some of the girls, especially traveling from far distance, rural people, girls, from rural settlement, they're traveling far to the roadside, so it's not secured for them. So the parents, they have to come in the morning and drop them to the roadside. Then only.
So even getting to school is a safety issue.
Yeah.
Unaisi, for young girls with disability, what would safety and preventing gender-based violence mean in terms of education?
For young girls with disability, I would say is free them from all forms of violence, because they are vulnerable and they have been discriminated all the time. So people has to look at their abilities but not their disabilities.
Okay. Jona, for young people, including those from the lesbian, gay, bisexual and trans community, how do we ensure that when they're going to school as children, the school is a safe environment?
Well, nowadays we can't tell whether the school or home is safe. everywhere is not safe. So I think first of all, there should be awareness programs should be done in villages. Gender sensitization training should be done in order to understand their gender inequalities, because they were there for a purpose. They were not there to be treated as animal. So I think the gender equality should be in everyone's mind, whether you're a boy, gay, or lesbian, or you're a woman. You're still a human. You are still counted in the human right. So I think that is the knowledge that some of us lacks. So I think this kind of training should be done to them, to educate them, to broaden up the mind, that everyone should be treated equally despite the background they come from or the gender they belong to. So I think those kind of short awareness should be done in order to, advocate more on human rights to everyone's life.
And keep them safe.
And keep them safe.
Vani?
For us in isolated rural community, there's a vast difference. I joined the census population count, Sharon, and I noticed while collecting data, that most parents were uneducated, but their children have reached USP. The children have reached USP, they're doctors, they're nurses. So I think that the awareness has gone out how important education is, especially for mothers. Before there was no community policing, but now since awareness has been done, and also children know their right, parents have been educated, there are a lot of awareness coming to our communities. Maybe it has broadened their mind, and now they know the importance of education. And because of education and because of the awareness, women are able to know their rights and able to come out from their safe spaces. Because if there are no awareness and they do not know their rights, and they do not know where to go to, and they'll be frightened to come out from their comfort zone. So,
but in terms of making sure that we can end gender-based violence in education, and when you talk about you went out, we know that there are children, there are girls and boys trying to get to school from remote communities. How do we make sure that the school system is also working to prevent gender-based violence?
Maybe it needs to be put into their curriculum, the education curriculum, gender violence. They have family life education, maybe must make that subject compulsory, so that they, and also awareness to the teachers, education ministry.
Jona, if you were to go back to school and change the way things were, what would have been a perfect school environment for you?
Well, a perfect school environment for me is where understanding and zero discrimination is there. I think that is the only safest school I would go to if I go back to my school days.
No discrimination?
No discrimination.
So that would have been no teasing,
no
teasing,
pushing? No pushing, any form of discrimination.
Because discrimination includes violence,
I think that is one of the issues that brings up the violence, for gender-wise.
Yeah.
So I think if there is no discrimination, I think the main point here is the discrimination. If there is zero discrimination in that school, I think that school will be one of the best schools.
It'll be safe for
everyone. Will be safer, and I would advise my friend to take their children in.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining in the conversation on Radio with Pictures. Vani, Jona, Unaisi and Nirmala. Don't forget, you can continue to follow the conversation via our social media networks on Twitter and Facebook, but also on FemTalk 89 FM. Till the next time, thanks for joining us.